everything's, you know, I actually have Pinterest stuff. I try to like check things too, stuff that's wrong on Pinterest. But
oh, Pinterest,
yeah,
ruined so many lives.
Oh, there's so many times there's been a picture of this castle. They say, "Oh, look at this castle," and I was like, "That's actually the pump house from Bull Castle. I've been there. It's not really the castle." It's okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that would be the question: is new technology making it easier? Because, quite frankly, all of my research is in one place.
Yeah. But I was just going to add too on the going to places too. I mean, that's another thing you can use Google for. You can combine Google Maps with Google Street View.
Right.
And I've done that before because there's some, you know, in the second book they go to a lot of cities in Bosnia that I've not been to yet, and especially now because some of them are still not that.
They're not safe.
But using Google Maps and Google Street View, because they actually have run the little Google car through some of these places, you know, and finding, you know, the actual physical setting.
I just accidentally did that last night in New Zealand. Somebody sent me an email from New Zealand, so I looked up their their address because I'm stupid. And so it showed me their physical address in New Zealand and a picture of their house and, you know, all around and stuff. So I just took a stroll down the street, you know, with Google Streets.
So again, like I said, that does make it easier. Yeah, I love Google. Google's a good thing. It does sort of have its issues again, incognito window. It's there for a reason. So, anybody would like to? Yes?
Is there a point when, for what you research to what you just want to let your imagination take away,
Well, yeah, you can only research magic so much, you know, and like if you're writing about new life on Mars, well, you know, you can only research it so much because life doesn't exist there right now that we know of. So, you know, you have to make up stuff in a lot of cases, especially when you're dealing with magic. What you do, though, is you research what magic used to be like in our world, and then transpose it and, you know, make up spells and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you can, yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do, and you know, like, and sometimes what I've found is, like, I've actually, you know, done the research and found, you know, the historical fact, and if it's an obscure enough thing, I might actually just change it to fit the plot of the story. I did that in a couple of places in mine. You know, it's like mostly historically accurate, but
well, again,
you know,
it's because you're making it realistic, not real.
It's the idea of bringing with some verisimilitude.
Right.
There's a reason I don't write historic fantasy, and there's a reason I don't write historical fiction. I have a really hard time letting go of the facts. Granted, my master's in American history, and it actually had a very specific point of Atlantic history from 1500 to about 1660. But I've done a lot of last 100 years kind of research because I have a lot of free time on my hands, and I get bored very easily. So. But my issue is if I write, say, something that is prior to World War I, right there, I can't let go of certain facts to just do it. But I can write Nazi werewolves storming the beaches in World War II because it has to ring with verisimilitude. You can't let the research itself. Is this a problem for anybody else on this panel? Is just the facts getting in the way of a good story?
The problem with the facts getting in the way is you want to put too many facts in because you've done all this research, so you want everybody else to know exactly what you've researched. But you really, if you put all that in, people will go to sleep. So you kind of have to just put in little bits of it here and there. And so, to me, that's the part of the research that's both good and bad. Because you research 100% of your research, but then you can only put in 5 to 10% of that research. That research is just so to get your mind into where you need to be.
The data dump.
Oh my gosh.
What was that you said?
The data
The
dump.
data dump.
Oh, yeah. If I can make one suggestion to anyone writing fantasy, please don't info dump as much as you think you should. Don't Tolkien info dump. There's only one person who could Tolkien info dump, and
It's Tolkien.
And he almost did it right, and that was Tolkien. So.
Except for someone.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say, when you were mentioning about being stuck on the facts, I think it might come simply from the prospect of, all right, I'm trying to write something and I have to be able to input a certain amount of disbelievability. You know, I have to have a story where the reader can allow themselves to disbelieve so that they can enjoy the story. And if I wind up getting mired down in facts...
Well, you know, I wrote a book that contained a lot of hot air balloons. Well, I did the research on how hot air balloons are made and how everything is, but I couldn't put all that in the book. But I just did it so that my mind could get to being in a hot air balloon.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are only a handful of guys. There are a handful of writers and authors who can make history interesting. Unfortunately, I'm not Shelby Foote or James McPherson, so I'm not going to try. So they can make it. James McPherson's actually a fun read. So
I have the question that falls in the same area, but you've done all the research, say, on Bosnia, Eastern Europe, and you've surrounded yourself with it, but yet your readers are not as familiar. So how do you juggle putting that 5% in just to give them the feel when you're immersed in it? So you might feel like, oh, this is assumed. So how do you walk that line with putting in enough information? Because some of my favorite writers, I feel like I've learned about Scotland, or I've learned about these countries, or, oh my gosh, Louise Penny, I mean, Canada, and, Armand Clash, oh my gosh, you're right there with you're in Three Pines, you're there because of her descriptions and the historical stuff. So how do you judge that? Say specifically in your context with Eastern Europe.
I have I have readers basically that read it that aren't big history people and so don't know a lot of history, and so they can point out to me in places, because to further complicate things, and one of the main characters is a history professor, so he tends to spout off about, but they can point out to me places where this is confusing, I don't know what's going on, you need to put in more detail, or you're starting to get boring and your history professor character is starting to give a lecture. And so, that helps me, is having beta readers go through and tell me, where the balance is.
Don't ever underestimate the benefits of beta reading. I think we can agree, if you can't afford an editor, because editors are expensive and some of us are indie, get a beta reader. Get a beta reader. Get a beta reader.
That's true, right in the audience.
If you can take anything away from that. Also, I haven't yelled about Joseph Campbell and Hero Cycle, so this is not even a Shannon panel yet. So, Joseph Campbell, Hero Cycle. Now we're good. So, anybody got any other questions?
The beta writer, someone who just like is one of your friends, or someone who's a technical person in reading, or?
I think it would depend on how well you would trust a friend to do so. For example, I have a friend who I used to co-write with forever and ever and ever. I cannot trust her opinion on my work, because what I'm going to get is, oh my god, this is so great, and then 45 minutes of, I can't do anything, blah, 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 consistently. I think beta readers are amazing, they're fantastic, you should find them, but you should find someone who's going to be non-partisan. Writers groups are good for that, but that's actually another panel, and in fact that will be another panel tomorrow at 1 o'clock in room 8. I'll be there too. Yay! Okay.
So now you have all this research. How do you keep it organized?
Who wants to start that one?
I mean, I know there's software programs out there.
Well, see, I just have